This obsession with appearance is a symptom of a much larger problem. Blaming looks maxing is misdiagnosing the issue. And if we don't understand what the real problem is, we have no hope of fixing it. Cases like Clavicular show what happens when is focus on yourself spirals out of control. My viewers need to understand that over-focusing on yourself destroys mental health and what the alternative is. People think the problem is in how they look. The real problem is where the attention is focused. So over the course of this video, I want to talk about what creates poor mental health and the opposite of that, what creates a good mental health. I want to speak about how appearance is not the problem. And I want to talk about the role of social media. I will also touch on some examples like Clavicular and Mike Israetel. And I want to end with some practical advice on how you guys can avoid this trap. So over the course of this video, I want you to really understand what the problem is, because it's not looks, it's not social media. There is a larger problem at play here, and these are all simply manifestations of that problem. Now, in the first section, I want to speak about what actually creates poor mental health. I've been either teacher or coach for 3 decades now, and I've spotted trends with people who I've talked to, I've observed, and over the course of my lifetime, I can safely say that people with the worst mental health have this one thing in common: are overly focused on themselves. They have an inward focus, whether that's their appearance or their social ranking, their perceived flaws, their self-evaluation, their opinion, even their morality. Their attention is turned inward in this constant loop. The more they observe themselves, the more flaws they find. And it's not just looks, it could be any number of things. There is a destructive nature of self-awareness. Constant introspection creates anxiety. Constant comparison creates insecurity. Constant self-presentation creates this internal pressure in yourself. This internal microscope we place on ourselves becomes a self-reinforcing trap. The very thing that you might be doing to try and fix your insecurities is actually the road towards greater insecurities. Self-focused rumination is one of the strongest predictors of anxiety and depression. However, in contrast, outward engagement that interrupts the rumination and improves your mood. So in summary of the first section, this is where people go wrong. They think that if they fix one thing about their looks, their social identity, even their voice, some people will deepen their voice. If they think they fix that, it will be one more step towards fixing their self-image. It's not. The very path they're taking is the path towards poor mental health. So now let's speak about the opposite pattern. What do healthy minds do? Every single person that I've known with a strong mental health focuses outward. They think about what they can do, who they can help, what they contribute to the people around them and to society, and how they interact with their environment. Their attention is on their actions, not this constant internal narrative about themselves. One of the surest signs I have that somebody is suffering from poor mental health is when I speak to them, they can't do anything except talk about themselves. Now, those people we think are annoying, they're a bit one-dimensional, but actually they are usually bordering on some type of poor mental relationship with themselves. People with good mental health, they are immersed in the moment, in tasks, in people, in environments. When they ask you how you are, they really mean it, and they ask follow-up questions about you and what you're doing, because it's not all about them. They don't sit around thinking about their jawlines or the pitch of their voice or their social image. They get feedback from reality, not fantasy. So to summarize this second section, what creates good mental health from what I've seen, generally speaking, an artifact of good mental health are people who are focused outward, not on their appearance, their social ranking, their jawline, their voice, their opinions even. They are focused on how they can help people, how they can be of service to the people around them, the environment, how they can interact with things. They're getting away from themselves. In a flow state, you are no longer thinking about yourself. You are simply thinking about what you are doing. That is a key towards breaking this cycle of self-rumination and improving your mood. And if your life is filled with things like that, and if you're constantly looking for ways to interact with other people in a genuine manner and your environment and do things, you will avoid that trap. If your solution is only to focus more on yourself, you're only going down the wrong path. Now, the next section, I want to speak about how appearance is not the problem. Okay, there's nothing wrong with caring about your appearance. That's just basic self-respect. Okay, the problem is when your appearance becomes your entire identity. You need to be more than that. Because if your appearance is your identity or your social ranking, that's a type of identity which is very fragile because it's dependent on external validation and factors which are just simply not in your control. If we go back to the talk about looks, your looks are going to fade as you get older. It's just the natural law of things. And people begin to modify their looks, not because it improves their life, but simply because it quietens that anxiety for 5 minutes. And that loop becomes addictive. So these are behaviors on a road which is leading to poor, worse mental health. And every little surgery or behavior that you do, which is on that road, might provide some temporary relief in the moment. And that becomes addictive. That surgery that you might have might make you feel all right for a week, for a month. But after that, all of the rest of your problems come crashing back to you because you are on the wrong path from the beginning. Now, the next section, I want to speak about meditation almost as a counterpoint to having an internal focus. Meditation for me has 3 main purposes, okay? 3 sort of levels. The first level is about relaxation. Okay, obvious. That's not what we're talking about here. The second level is about clearing your mind. Now, that has a purpose because if your brain is constantly filled with thoughts about anxiety, about yourself, about your looks, about your social ranking, whatever else, that will give you a respite because it will give you the skill of clearing your mind. That's part of what meditation does. Now, the final stage of meditation is the reduction or destruction of ego. That is about silencing yourself. It's about silencing the sense of self. When your own sense of self is much more diminished, the suffering will be reduced because you can't feel bad about things you're not thinking about. You know, if meditation in its most extreme form, even stage 2, allows you to clear your brain and not think about yourself, well, you're going to have nothing to be anxious about because you're not going to be thinking about yourself. You'll be thinking about your place in the environment, other people. Automatically, that will lift your mood and make you a more calm person. Something that I've done for years, and I think it has vastly improved my mental health, and I recommend it to everyone. The next thing I want to speak about is social media. Now, this is not the cause. You know, social media is an amplifier. It is an avenue. It is a potential way to manifest these behaviors, but it is not the cause. For example, to give you my experience, I had a very basic phone until my late 20s. In my 30s was when I started to get more of a fancy phone. And that was when I had the ability to take pictures on the go. This was around about 2010. I didn't take pictures or videos prior to that point. In fact, even after that point, I didn't bother taking many pictures or videos because I saw that as kind of a young person thing to do. So I thought, why bother? You know, Facebook and all that kind of stuff. It didn't appeal to me at the time because it just seemed like a very new young person thing to do. So I didn't take a lot. I spent most of my early life, my 20s, up to my mid 30s, lifting, living and enjoying real environments and interactions with people. And my mental health, thank God, was absolutely fantastic in the beginning formative years of my life. And as a result, that has created a strong sense of self-image, which makes me far more able to do social media without having as many hang-ups as if I had began earlier. I think if I'd entered this ecosystem when I was a lot younger, I would have suffered more problems. I mean, just an example of this is kind of a funny point, but it's true nonetheless, and it maybe betrays some poor mental health. But I know guys on this platform, guys who are good guys, but they blatantly deepen their voice when they're speaking on camera. I mean, it's quite funny, but it might also betray some type of trying to live up to a standard. They're all symptoms of the same problem anyway. You're trying to perfect an image rather than improve your reality. So I wanted to talk a bit about Clavicular now. I think this is an extreme example of appearance fixation in an attempt to fix his mental health. He's a young guy, he's already over 6 foot tall, he's already undergone significant surgeries, and he's presenting himself in this constantly upgraded aesthetic identity that he has in his head of perfection. The problem is that his identity appears to be fully built on appearance. Every perceived flaw that he has, he's identified it and he wants to fix it via either surgery, enhancements, or some kind of corrections. This is not self-improvement. This is, again, going down the path where Every surgery, every self-correction might feel good in the moment, but ultimately he's on a path to what he perceives as perfection, which he's never going to reach because there's no such thing. And all it's going to do is it's going to constantly lead to this introspection, this look at me, myself, this focus on himself. And that in itself is the road to poor mental health. To actually feel better about himself, to actually solve whatever issue he has, he needs to get away from that. Start to focus outwardly. It's almost like gambling. It never leads to anywhere good. You might get a few small wins along the way, which give you the feeling like you're on the right track, but the entire path is wrong. Now, why is this important? This clavicular kid. It's important because it represents where the culture is heading. We have created a generation, and I don't mean just younger people, I mean everyone, compelled to fix themselves physically rather than fixing their lives because the focus is always on themselves. So it magnifies whatever problems are inside. Now, 100 years ago, if you had these issues, you'd be out working in a field, maybe somewhere, doing a hard physical labor job. You wouldn't have time to think about it. You wouldn't have time to engage. So again, social media is not the cause of the problem, but it damn well magnifies issues, and it allows people to have lives like this where they are going down this path, which is going to lead to worse mental health and potentially some dangerous surgeries. Looks maxing culture. It encourages insecure young people to outsource their self-worth to external validation. This will all but guarantee long-term psychological instability. It's not a cure. It never will be. And just to give you another quick parallel, Mike Israetel and the pressure of millions of subscribers, Mike has undergone a bunch of surgeries. He must have massive pressure from an audience of millions. His repeated failures on stage over and over again, never coming in anywhere close to shape, just magnifies his internal struggles. His interactions with interviewers, with the public, talking about how he always feels rage, how he dreams of physical violence against people.
I think about violence all the time.
These are signs of severe mental dysfunction, which are only going to get worse because of the path he's going down. He's going down this path of what he considers to be self-improvement, to the point where he's talking about wanting to break his own ribs in a surgery to have a slimmer waist. Now, that might give him some temporary satisfaction, but ultimately he's on the wrong path. That's what I'm saying here. It's not social media. It's not looks. It's the dysfunction and the manifestation of that dysfunction, and the perceived solution to that function is all wrong, because it all points to a focus on self, which is the wrong thing. You have to point outwards to fix your mental health problems. So just to briefly speak about myself, I've been lucky that for the majority of my life, I've had very good mental health. My entire adult life has been in service of others. Okay, whether that's being a school teacher, coaching lifters, I generally spend all day helping people solve problems. Like once I finish recording this video, I will do some editing, and I will be spending the majority of the afternoon with my clients. That's what I do all day long. And when I'm doing that, I'm not thinking about myself, my appearance, or whatever insecurities I have. I'm simply thinking about helping them. I will spend hours today helping my clients. My daily life is set up to pull the attention away from myself. This has resulted in, for me, very luckily, constant mental stability, even through very stressful periods of my life. Okay. Even if I'm going through considerable stress, when I'm at work, I'm not thinking about that stress. I'm not thinking about myself. I'm simply focused on other people, their problems, their issues, solving things, and interactions with them. Good, positive, uplifting interactions with them. That's what I've been blessed to be able to do. And I'll say this, exercise and physical pursuits, they never harmed my mental health because they were never the center of my identity. Even in the early days when I was a lifter and a competitor, I had teaching on the side. So the core lesson is this: if the attention is on yourself, your problems will grow. If the attention is on the world, your problems will shrink. You'll have temporary reprieves to your worries, to your issues, while you are with other people. Your identity should be built on what you do, who you help, what you produce, how you contribute. So in terms of some practical takeaways, stop trying to perfect yourself. There is no perfection. Start acting in the world and build a life that pulls your attention outwards. Identity that is built on competence, what you can do, is stable because you can always improve that. Identity that is built on aesthetics is fragile. Competence creates confidence. long-lasting confidence and mastery. Aesthetics, a focus on aesthetics, creates dependency on something which is generally very fragile. So that is my summary of the problem. It's not exclusively a looks problem. There's nothing wrong with being concerned with your looks. It's self-respect. It's perfectly healthy. You should have a degree of pride in how you look, in my opinion. And it's also not a problem with social media. Social media is simply the vehicle for worsening this self-focus, which otherwise wouldn't be as readily available as it is on your phone right now. So if you want to improve your mental health, literally the best thing you can do, go up and strike a conversation with somebody and take a genuine interest in them. When you ask them how their day is, mean it. Don't just ask them for the sake of them asking you. Mean it. Ask follow-up questions. Get to know what's interesting about them. Do things which involve taking your focus away from yourself. You can do bodybuilding without a focus on yourself. You can do powerlifting without a focus on yourself. Aim to interact with people, be a good person, stay busy, be useful. These are the keys to good mental health. It starts with you. You don't fix it by constantly looking at yourself and trying to fix yourself. We are not designed to live that way. We are social beings. Fix it by being more involved with your loved ones, with your community. All right, guys. Peace out. Take care. See you in the next one.